Welcome to the FNO InsurTech Podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsurTech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world, welcome to another edition of FNO InsurTech. I am the cute one, Rob Beller. Lee is the
online
smart one, Lee Boyd, Vice President of TPA and all kinds of other stuff at Alacrity.
Yeah.
Rob Beller, former of Alacrity. I guess I'm still Alacrity.
Yeah, you're retired when you choose to be.
Yeah, I'm retired sometimes.
Yeah. How's that going, by the way?
The retirement thing?
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
You always hear about those people who go into retirement and they're like, "Oh no, get me back. I want to be busy. I want my work." That's not really you, is it?
No. It's not me. It took me about 4 minutes and I got used to it. And I got to tell you, you hear about people and you meet people, you come across people who go back to work, right?
Yeah.
And I have zero problem with that because my attitude in life is if you're doing what you love and it's not hurting anybody, then that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
And so if what you love is your work, like my grandfather worked until he was 80.
Oh, wow.
And because he wanted to, right? Not because he had to. But yeah, I am semi-retired is my official title.
What do you do now?
I do still
watch birds?
No. I do not watch birds. I'm not quite sure how to take that question.
I have a visual of you with some binoculars and a cup of coffee, watching the birds. Every so often a squirrel comes in.
The cup of coffee is right. Right now, I'm busy with remodeling our kitchen.
Oh, you do have a big remodel going.
I have a big remodel project going on, which is very exciting and fun, and I'm enjoying it. Although living,
but you're not actually doing it. You're not knocking the things out.
No.
Yeah.
No, I can't lift a hammer. It's I wouldn't know what to do with it. So it's funny because there's all these handy people around now, right? And they're like, "Oh yeah, you do this, this, and this." With,
good for you.
with this kind of tool and that kind of tool, and I'm like, "Oh, sure, of course, that's what you do."
Yeah, it makes sense.
I have no idea what they're talking about. None. But that's kind of like why I'm on this podcast, because I have no idea what any of our guests are talking about either.
Isn't that kind of why we started it? Because we just weren't sure what everybody was talking about?
Yes. In fact, that's exactly why we started it, because we wanted it to seem like we knew what we were talking about.
Yeah. That's why we asked the questions on the podcast and the professionals answer them.
That's right.
And we say, "Oh, yeah, that sounds right." Yeah, good.
And I'll
good
bet
for you
sometimes our guests hang up or finish, we finish the episode and they're like, why did they ask such rudimentary, simple questions?
What a bunch of morons. Why would they ask?
Why didn't they ask the good, hard questions? And the answer is because we're a couple of morons.
Yeah, because we don't know what to ask.
Yeah. Or as we like to say, we're yo-yos.
Yeah, but I will tell you, our guest today, we do kind of know what they do.
Oh my gosh. We have a guest today who is so bright and so well-spoken. You're gonna listen to this podcast, and at the end, you're gonna say, "Why don't they do that every time?"
Yeah, why didn't he lead the podcast?
We have a great podcast today. We have Ali Azar, Chief Business Development Officer at Hover, with us on the podcast.
Yes, and he comes on, and he is really leading the charge along with others at Hover to work on the current verticals that they're in, construction, insurance, and then moving into new verticals. He has been in the Hover ecosystem for a long time, and we're going to get to talk about kind of where they've been, a little bit of where they were back 2018, and a little bit of where they're going. And then we get a look into Hover, and it's an all around great podcast. This is not the first hover podcast we've had. In fact, we've had many of them, but each one seems to take a little bit different slant. And today's is a must listen.
Yeah, I mean, Ali is a business development professional, and you can tell that from the way that he views the business. But he's also a very long time at Hover and has been there from early to be a part of all the changes and everything that's gone on. And for those of you who maybe don't have the exposure to InsurTech that some of the other ones of you do, this is one of the most successful InsurTechs out there, period, bar none. There's few that have reached this level of success and impact. And we're really familiar with it because of our work on the claims side and seeing the product, right?
Yeah.
And so
Hover is so big in the InsurTech space. Whenever you say, "Oh, I'm going to an InsurTech conference," and like, "What's that?" You're like, "Oh, like Hover." I mean, they're one of the name brands that you use when you talk about InsurTech.
Name brand, and the revenue shows it, and the success shows it. And well, let's stop talking.
Yeah, let's not jibber jabber.
Let's talk to Ali. Let's talk to him. And so, without further ado, let's get to Ali Azar, Chief Business Development Officer at Hover. Hey, everybody, we're here with a super special guest, somebody who we have been working to have on the podcast for a long time. We have Ali Azar, the Chief Business Development Officer. Did I get that right?
You did. It's a mouthful, but you got it.
The CBDO at Hover. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
And not coming to us from one of the normal locations that we usually hit, which would be Silicon Valley, New York City, Israel. But go ahead, tell us where you're coming to us from today.
Good old Franklin, Tennessee.
Of course.
Franklin, Tennessee. Tech hub of Tennessee.
The Hover branch office in Franklin, Tennessee.
I'm recruiting more and more of the Hoverites here. I think if we can get to 10 people, I become a community, and 20 people, we become a hub. So
has anyone joined you? How long have you been in Franklin?
We moved here just November of 21. And since that time, we have three more people from Hover that live here.
Oh, wow.
Did you hire them from there, or did they move in? Transplants?
2 moved and 1 we hired.
Hey, looky there. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm feeling real bullish now because our VP of engineering came from Eventbrite, and he helped take that company public, and he built a really sound team of engineering and engineering leadership in Franklin, Tennessee.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
So the talent is there.
Yeah. Well, it's a big med tech hub for the country.
Okay.
So there is a lot of tech talent here that is usually got recruited because of medical software.
Is there a good school nearby?
Yeah, there's a few good schools. Vanderbilt's around here.
Vanderbilt. And you guys get weather in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's seasons. You get the seasons, and the winter is that perfect amount of like 1 week of white snow beauty, and then it just kind of melts away. But if you get more than a little bit of snow, the whole state shuts down because they don't have enough trucks for the salt to hit the local roads. So
right. Well, welcome to the podcast from, I guess that we'll call it the Midwest. Is that right, or the South?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I don't know what you call
the
Tennessee.
Northern South or the Eastern Midwest. One of the
it's
two.
It's like its own thing. Tennessee.
It's like part of the story of my identity crisis life.
Let's talk for a second about your identity crisis life. I mean, you just from your name, you might surmise that you have an interesting story. Can you share it with us real quickly?
Yeah, I'd give you a little insights into just kind of my background. Originally born in Afghanistan, my 2 older sisters, mother and father, we emigrated here in 1980 because of the war with Russia. And it was, not necessarily the safest place in the world to be. And I think the family lasted there for a few years before things just got so hectic that it made sense to leave. And so we kind of did one of those middle of the night things and made our way to to Newark, New Jersey, which my dad says is more treacherous than Afghanistan in 1980.
The case could be made, yes.
But yeah, we spent a couple of years there, and then my parents kind of did everything they could to learn English as a second language. And my father's too proud to take welfare, so he worked 2 full-time jobs and managed to get a job in a hospital in Florida, which landed us in Jacksonville. So from about the time I was 5 until about 34, we lived in Jacksonville, Florida. And,
wow, a Southerner.
Yeah.
Well, so you're back in the South. Good for you.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah, full circle.
The American dream story. I love it. So you are now, what's the difference? You were the chief revenue officer. Did you just, is it a different job with the new title, or did you guys just say, you know what, we're going to change the title but do the same thing?
No, it is actually a different function in the business for us. And I came into Hover with a very traditional sales leadership role as the head of sales, and evolved into the vice president of sales and then the CRO, which in that position, we really kind of more squarely focused on optimizing the core business. And really what was a big part of the impact that I was able to have on the company in the early years of the business was just the ability to drive success opening up a new market. So it was initially construction, and then it went to insurance. And as we've gotten into a place where in our construction and home improvement vertical, we really found both product and go-to-market fit, the job is really to optimize that core business as CRO. And that's not really the sweet spot of where I can have the greatest impact. So one of the things that we decided to do was to really get me focused on what could we do to develop our more nascent markets at the time, like insurance, as well as open up new market opportunities for the business, like our direct-to-consumer initiatives, as well as are there other aspects of prop tech that we could go into, the appraisal space, real estate, et cetera.
Wow.
That's exciting.
That's really cool. So let me follow that up by saying, can you share with us those verticals that you guys are active in today and making a splash?
Sure, be happy to. So just to give a little bit of context on kind of the genesis of the business, when AJ discovered this technology, it was like a tech without a use case. And so he spent several years going through an exhaustive process of trying to identify where could we find product market fit with the technology. And where that first happened was in our construction vertical, working with almost exclusively remodeling contractors that were doing exterior cladding work, and established really incredible channel partner relationships, built out a really great partner ecosystem with some of the top manufacturers and distributors. That was right around the time that Kevin Riley had entered the business. And those really helped drive a lot of success in terms of our growth to get exposed to this market that had traditionally not been strong adopters of technology, being, tradesmen and contractors.
Right.
And so, but kind of with the Amazonification of the world, the changing consumer expectations started to force change upon these service providers. And whether it was the distributor of materials, the manufacturer of materials, or the contractor or the tradespeople applying the materials. And so we ended up positioning ourselves in a very unique place as like a conduit between all of these constituents within this ecosystem. And in the process of launching successfully and finding both product and go-to-market fit and home improvement, effectively doing the first phase of our business, which is a Pierce Point solution that sells measurements for money, effectively, measurements and visual design, started the process of acquiring pretty significant scale of adoption within home improvement. And in that process, lots of contractors who do elective remodel work also do restoration work. So they started to deliver our data outputs to adjusters wanting to utilize
naturally.
Yeah, here, I have this, use this.
Right. And so that's really was the initial impetus behind, hey, there may be an opportunity that's real in insurance. And we faced a pretty daunting task, though, because we didn't have fast enough turnaround times. We didn't have the integration relationships that we need. And people told us we were crazy for even giving it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, you guys had to go through a number of steps each each one probably painful.
It was painful, but definitely not for the faint of heart. And bless Justin Hancher and Spencer Warden and Sumit Howe and Kevin Riley for pushing forward, starting really in earnest in 2018. And then we've been able to scale our adoption. It's now insurance is the fastest growing segment of the business. It's catching up in overall revenue growth to the construction vertical. And
insurance is not the largest. Your construction is.
Yeah, construction is the largest, and insurance is fastest growing and catching up to construction, but construction's still the largest. And then the other segment of the market that we've started to invest significant resource into officially kind of launch ourselves into this market is our direct-to-consumer offerings. And so come out with like just kind of toe in the water launches towards the latter half of last year. And now this year in earnest, we will be bringing our direct-to-consumer offering to the market.
What is the play there? What are you trying to do with a direct-to-consumer market? I assume is it more than just measurements?
Yeah, it's more than measurements. It's both measurements and then instant visual design. And we're really trying to answer the questions for a consumer. What's it going to cost? First, what is it going to look like? And then that thing that you fall in love with that has a look, what's that thing cost? And then who are the service providers that can help do this work that are high quality service providers that are tech enabled? And we now have a network of contractors that are tens of thousands of contractors that use the platform. We have hundreds of insurance carriers and IAs, TPAs, ladder assists that use the platform. And we have hundreds of thousands of consumers that come to the platform, but they were experiencing a product offering that was quite, it was built for pros. It wasn't actually built for a consumer.
Right. It's right. They're coincidentally running into it.
Correct. And now with some of the breakthroughs in generative AI and machine learning, to be able to offer single photo upload with instant design change capability that we can very soon connect to specific applied materials and allow for controls of those applied materials with that instant design deliverable. It's really incredible kind of experience when your consumer is in the phase of like ideation and envisioning what a project could look like.
How cool.
Well, so what's the monetization there? Is it then hooking them up into the networks of contractors, or?
Yeah, that is absolutely one play that you can run. And it could go either way. There could be a direct consumer monetization. It could be just providing higher quality selling opportunities to the contractor market. All of that's being tested right now as we're launching that product to find out what would be the best for the market. Okay.
I'll go as far as saying, I'll go out on a limb here. Ready? Here I go. So, I can't tell you how many insurtechs we've had on our podcast, many, literally scores. And you guys are one of the bright, shining success stories in insurtech.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down, bar none. Because not only are you providing a really important product, right? You guys have figured out the marketplace. You've created, like you were talking about, product market fit. And well, the insurance, and you don't just stroll into the insurance industry and say, hey, we're going to change things. Come along, everybody get on board, right? You'll get exactly zero uptake and nothing will happen. And so you guys have the story is incredible, starting from not even really understanding, oh, wow, this could be applicable there. Having that aha moment and taking it all the way to where it is today is an amazing success story.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, it's always been AJ's vision to, well, first, I just want to tell you, I already thought that you all were smart, but now that you said that, I know you're
even smarter.
Genius.
Even smarter.
People are overlooking you too, big time.
Wait, let's stop and talk about this topic for a moment.
Yeah. We'll pass on that one.
Go ahead.
Well, the really amazing thing that has happened for us is that, and AJ, he's our founder and CEO. He's a really, really incredible guy. Stubborn as a mule. I think you need it if you're going to be an entrepreneur. It's not for the faint of heart. And he never wavered in his commitment to deliver a solution that would provide incredibly high utility and value to the end consumer. Even though we were finding great success building a 9-figure revenue business off of this B2B pro use cases that we were being highly successful with, he never, ever wavered from, at some point, I want to be able to do something that aligns our values directly with these pro markets that we're servicing, whose ultimate end customer is the homeowner, whether that be a policyholder or a homeowner, whether you're a contractor or you're a real estate agent or you're a insurance company. And so having that as our North Star, I think, has really helped align us to the vision and the values and the mission that carriers have. And so one of the things that we believe is very unique and differentiated for us is this desire to create this very fluid consumer-grade experience for the homeowner ends up fusing very well to the critical metrics and KPIs that carriers, for example, are judged by, right? CSAT of the policyholder and NPS and all of these things. So it's really, I think, helped both differentiate us as not just being a software provider to pro users, but also having this element of a focus on policyholder homeowner experience.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that just for a minute? Sometimes people think Hover is measurements, right? That they provide measurements, but you really provide so much more. You provide speed, accuracy, increased satisfaction, right? And also what's very, very important, and I want to talk about, is supplements. If we already have the measurements up front, are we able to decrease supplements due to measurements? Is that a big focus for you to focus on speed, accuracy, all those other things?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that just to reference back to what I'd mentioned earlier in the interview was measurements are a pierce point capability for us. They've been how we've entered a market, that data product.
Yeah.
But ultimately what we want to do is some of the best companies on the planet are both data providers and also workflow solutions. So what initiates itself with this data product then starts to span to what elements of the workflow make sense for us to potentially bring technological advancement to. If there already are solutions, can we make them better? Or if there aren't solutions, can we introduce solutions so that you create user efficiency at the pro level, for example, for adjusters, either staff or independent or even ladder assist? And then can you create a greater experience for the end consumer of the experience, which is the homeowner? And so whether it's the inspection checklist capabilities or material ordering capabilities, there's other dimensions to this that help facilitate commerce. And I know you don't think about insurance from the perspective of like e-commerce, for example, because it's not an elective procedure that's happening, but there still absolutely is a commerce experience happening. Something needs to be done to something that costs something. Someone is paying and someone is receiving.
Yeah.
Right? There's goods and services being exchanged. So we look at the world from the perspective of, can we connect endpoints to start to infuse ourselves into the workflow once the data product is initially established on the measurement side? So it's significantly more than just measurements for money. And as it relates to insurance, that desire for more autonomy for the policyholder as the world continues to move in that direction is something that we're squarely focused on in terms of some of the DIY capabilities that we have and that are being utilized at scale in the market.
And I just want to add here that another fact of your product is, and it's why it might be even more intriguing on a direct-to-consumer level, is it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool product, right? That's not terribly complicated to use. And in fact, it used to be one of the main selling features that you guys used to talk about, was that, you go out, you take, 8 pictures and boom.
Yeah, that's right. It's definitely a little bit of like a magic moment for people when they're utilizing it. Just the concept of being able to take photos from a mobile device and then extract data to be able to provide a level of accuracy really is a function of like how high fidelity those photos are, because they're being captured at ground level from sometimes 20, 30 feet away from the property. But the really amazing thing is that we see the world from the perspective of, hey, there's a policyholder component, but then there's also a pro user component. So part of the reason why those workflow capabilities are built on top of this very innovative base of technology is that we want to bring efficiencies to staff adjusters, independent adjusters, TPAs, bladder assist, any third party entity that has a reason or a function to go to a property to acquire data to be able to help people make decisions and, better triage what's happening on a post-loss scenario, for example, right? It's not just about the policyholder. So we really work hard to kind of counterbalance the needs of our pro users as well as policyholders.
I think that's great. I was just sitting here thinking, I still remember meeting Hover in 2018. It was at a conference. Maybe it's 2017, maybe even. But I was told by a friend, hey, there's this really cool technology. They do all these things with just your phone. And I was like, nah, not true. Not true. It's not real. It's vaporware, as they say these days, right? And I went and I was like, well, this is a game changer. And at that time, I remember the number one concern that people had was accuracy. Is it accurate? Can we test it? Is that still a question you get today? Or have people moved on past accuracy and they say, you've tested, you've proven that you're accurate? Or is that still something that you come up against on a regular basis?
It isn't so much a question of high concern for any customers that we are now starting to work with who we haven't already started to work with.
Yeah.
But it still always is a box that needs to be checked as part of the evaluation criteria for most carriers. But now that we do business with significant business with 18 of the top 20 carriers in the country and a significant percentage of the top 100, it's really no longer other than some FUD that still tries to get thrown out there about what it can and can't do, which is a bit ridiculous. Never have any issues with it.
I'm sitting here wondering, when you have credentials like that, what is or are the objections that you still hear in the insurance vertical in the process?
Yeah, what's really interesting about it is this would probably be something very near and dear to your hearts based off of your day jobs. Carriers are very, very, very adamant about the adjuster as a customer to their business. Mm. And so that experience for the adjuster has to be very high quality. And so one of the things that we get, and which is why we resource, I think probably on a dollar for dollar basis, probably more than anybody that I know of in the vertical and in the space, post-sale resources for onboarding, implementation, training, enablement, customer service. You can pick up the phone and make a phone call if you have an issue on site, and some human being will absolutely pick up that phone for you.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And it's a huge part of what AJ demands in terms of the service experience we create for people who are willing to spend their hard-earned dollars with us. Mm-hmm. A carrier's biggest objection is, you need to make sure this change management for my adjusters isn't something that's problematic.
Right.
It's like a precious resource within the business, right? Switching costs are very easy for an adjuster. The pain of losing trained and enabled adjusters is very high for a carrier.
Yes.
And so whether it's a carrier to their staff adjusters or it's a independent firm with their IAs, right? That's really the biggest thing. And when we walk them through, hey, let us show you the experience that we create in terms of a onboarding and implementation plan that is of no cost to you because we believe so highly in the strength and capability of our tech, then it usually stops becoming an issue.
And this is a point that I want to highlight for listeners who are out there trying to sell into the insurance vertical. When you say to an insurer, I just need to tweak your workflow a little, the conversation is kind of over, right? It's like, oh my God, no. Yeah. And that I think is one of the greatest challenges for InsurTech across the board for all types of InsurTechs is how can I manage that or help them or do it effectively, painlessly with the most buy-in? Because what a lot of adjusters will do is they just won't use it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It'll be on their dashboard, but they just won't click on it.
Yeah, it's like the dynamic reminds me of like the movie Gladiator, like it's actually the mob that had all the power. And the king can make whatever decision they want to make, but if you don't get it adopted by the masses, it's not ever going to come to fruition the way that you want. And just to go in response, and also to go back to something that Lee asked that I didn't answer, I apologize, Lee, is the idea of supplements that you had brought up. I think it's a great place to kind of reinsert that back in. We absolutely walk in doing workflow dissections almost to understand the way that the workflows exist today. And one of the reasons why we work so hard as a company to get our turnaround time for our deliverables as low as, in a lot of for our roof deliverable, it's about an average of 24-minute turnaround time from when you take the picture. Wow. So it fits within the on-site close settlement workflow. And then when you have the photos taken, even if you're just ordering the roof product from us, you can very simply just upgrade to a complete. If later, after you've long since left the property, a supplement comes in on the property, there is no going back out and measuring by hand what might happen to the sidewalls, right?
Yeah.
It might not have been impacted when the claim was originally initiated. So that, if you can save an adjuster time, one time that happens, they will never, ever use another product.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So
if you can prove it.
Yes.
Right. Why is construction the larger vertical for you guys? Is that just because it's so much, it's vast?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I'll answer it in a couple of ways. Initially, there was just a very strong need that was there, and the ecosystem play that we developed to get with the largest shingle manufacturer in the country, the largest premium hard siding manufacturer, vinyl siding, paint. There was such a huge need for evolving the customer experience at the point of sale. Mm-hmm. So those contractors were desperate to try.
They were hungry.
They were really hungry for it. And granted, they knew that they weren't excellent adopters of tech, but because the homeowner, their customer, was demanding it, they were willing to make that change. I think what's happening now is when we initially stepped into the insurance vertical, it was a far cry from where we are today. And the vertical is facing, even just in this last, from 18 to 19, 17 to 19 is way different than what's happened 20 to 23 in terms of years.
Right.
18 to 20 versus 20 to 23. And the dynamic of what's going on in the market has changed dramatically in insurance to a place where it used to be, hey, this is hard because organizational change management is not something that anybody wants to do. Now it's a little bit hard because people can't figure out how to change as fast as they want to change. So if you have the ability to be an innovation partner to the carrier,
right,
which is the position that we take, is, hey, we're not trying to sell you a technology. We're trying to help be an innovation partner for technology and deploying it effectively within your business.
As a salesperson, that's absolutely the right thing, because carriers have attempted to and are succeeding at reorganizing their thinking and their groups inside, and so many of them have innovation groups. So there's probably willing partners that already exist on the inside, and tapping into that is probably a winning formula.
It really has been, but that dynamic, Robin Lee, is, I think, what made it more challenging for us to grow in the space. And to be fair to the industry, we didn't have what we needed to actually successfully sell at scale. It wasn't until the most recent several years that we had the turnaround times that could accommodate both on-site and non-on-site settlement, the integrations with both of the major estimatics platforms, right?
That's big.
The case studies of proof points of being able to succeed at scale and make it through big storms and not fall over, right? Once those things really started to come into play, that's why we are now the most highly growth rate of acceleration now, even though the revenue dollars are smaller, but they're catching up. And both verticals now in the mid to high 8 figures. So it's, there's substantial scale there. Yeah.
Do you think that the support you give clients when implementing this technology and the continued use of this technology is just as important as the technology itself?
It's mission critical because it's changing habits and it's just it's a human psychology experience to take people who are used to doing something a certain way, and it's a very different thing to send them the manual versus walk them through the process together. And we walk into the experience with the carrier saying, hey, look, we completely and utterly understand how precious this resource is. Let us show you how we architect our implementation strategy in a way that respects that relationship dynamic between you and them, when you have 9 million other service providers that would also love the opportunity to be exposed to this audience. But one, we feel like we're a mission critical solution that can bring incredible value to you. So we want to be put in a little bit different category than maybe some other service providers. And two, if you just walk through this implementation plan, you can tweak it with us how you want, but we have an ample amount of resources that are oriented in a way that is made specifically to be sensitive to that dynamic. And then it'll go somewhere between, okay, hey, work with our L&D departments to empower them, to you can show up to the team meetings and start engaging with them. And sometimes it's on a continuum that changes over time, and sometimes it starts all the way at the end. But we just want to be more than what it used to be, which is, hey, fly the stork over the building, attach the note to the foot, drop it on the roof, and someone from our building will go up and pick it up and we'll tell it they need to know.
The thing that customers used to be excited about or ask about or scratch their head about was, what about the inside? Can we talk about the inside?
Sure. We'd be happy to.
Interiors. The inside probably isn't the best term.
I knew what you meant. Yeah, we were fortunate enough to bring such a high quality user experience for exteriors. For the last several years, the industry has been banging us over the head really hard. Like, hey, come on, guys, gals, can we get an interiors product? We love the exteriors. We would really love one solution for both.
Yeah.
Much more scalable. It's a repeatable process. It's a singular app. It's a refined tech stack, more efficient. Like,
you're already here.
Yeah, you're already here. Can we just do this? Can we get this done? And you have scale. Leadership believes in what you're doing, and so we struggled as a high growth early stage startup trying to figure out how to prioritize our resources.
Totally.
And now, as we've grown, we've been able to bring dedicated, committed resources just to insurance and dedicated to construction and home improvement, so that there's not shared resources across both verticals that get kind of pushed and pulled based on how strong the wind might be blowing in a direction. So that's helped us tremendously. But we launched a prototype product last year that there was a pretty significant amount of anticipation and in some cases desperation for a solution that could be tech, that could be adopted at scale. And now we're at a place where that solution is deployed in a couple dozen carriers' businesses. We are in the make it better every month kind of phase to get it's going through the same evolution that our exterior solution went through, because it's built on the same pipeline. But what took us 7 years to figure out on exteriors, we figure we can probably figure out in about 1.5 years, 2 years. So this is really our stabilization and like build a really strong foundation year for that capability. So we're evolving the user experience, and it's dramatically improves as time goes on. And we're excited by it because it sits squarely at the intersection of also our consumer ambitions.
Totally.
Oh,
Totally.
yeah. There's a lot you can do there. I will say I always had a great respect for Hover. It was in our world a long time that people had been asking for the inside, and Hover didn't bring it. And I had a lot of respect because I assumed you were working on a really good product, and you didn't just want to throw something out there just to meet the need. And I always respected that. I mean, kudos to that.
It was just figuring out what was the right way to go. I have all the respect and admiration in the world for AJ, because these decisions are so hard when there's so many great things that are high priority. Which way do you go with this stuff, and how do you figure out the chessboard here? But he did want to wait until we could really feel proud of the solution that we brought to market. And we were dealing with a decision that we now fortunately can resource both. But at the time it was like, we started with a LiDAR solution, and then the industry is like, well, wait a minute, we want this as a virtual use case to the policyholder more than anything. So we need non-LiDAR. So then we had to kind of stop that investment and pivoted to non-LiDAR. So now we've come out with a non-LiDAR solution. And now that non-LiDAR solution is scaling as a desk adjusting, policyholder capture, predominantly use case. We do have carriers that are non-on-site settlement that use non-LiDAR as well, that do real well with it. But then for staff, a lot of folks are like, hey, we're going to invest in LiDAR solutions for equipment. So now we're back to, having the LiDAR solution that's going to come out as well. So we'll have both in market this year. So it should be able to accommodate any use case.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, I mean, you have such a high quality and fully developed product for the exterior. It could hurt you if your interior product sucked.
Yeah, right. It could. And luckily we have really phenomenal customer relationships with folks from our exterior who actually used our exteriors when it sucked and then stayed with us to see what we were able to do with it. So they know how that evolution is going to go. We just had to promise them it'd be in a third of the time to go through that. But, AJ always talks about, in some instances, you do want a minimum viable product. In some instances, you actually want a minimum unviable product. You just want to be able to get that critical feedback from the market so you know what the user is experiencing. So then you can then quickly adjust and invest to be able to get it to the place where you ultimately want it to be. And so, yeah, we went through those motions from the end of the year before last through last year, and then now really seeing great adoption with it in this year. But our mindset goes beyond also just the measurements. So we're in R&D for the other things that we're going to do beyond just delivering the measurements, whether it's content detection, damage detection, image to scope, or image to estimate. So, we've got our ear to the ground to listen to where the industry is going.
Right.
And we're in that phase where we're not as small as we were before. So we listen really well. We're thoughtful about the decision, but then when we make it, we move aggressively in that direction.
Well, I always seem to ask everybody what their secret sauce is. I'm not going to do that here, but I would imagine the use of AI and your tool can take us a lot further than we are today. And I'm excited about that. So I know that's there. I do want to ask you one question. You as in Hover seem to hire great people. Right. We have had the privilege of having a lot of people on the podcast from Hover. I have gotten to meet a lot of people. You don't hire yo-yos. You don't hire people just to fill a seat. It seems that everyone that you hire has this passion within them, not even so much about the product, but passion about people. What is the hiring philosophy that Hover has that gets you such great people?
That's a really great question. And thank you for saying that about the business. That's, I think, one of the things that, if not the thing that we're the most proud of, as a company, because it gets really hard to do that and continue to do that as you scale. It's almost 350 people, over 300 people now. And it's very easy to accommodate that swan song that's in your ear when you have to fill a seat and you've got really aggressive growth goals and like, I'm just going to get this person in there. But yeah, they have to be kind in spirit and fierce in ambition. And we don't waver in our requirement there. Like the one thing you cannot do in Hover is you can't not be nice. And it doesn't mean
what a great foundation.
Yeah. But it's there's no amount of talent that you can have that will be tolerated inside the business if people find out that you are a terrorist inside the building.
Right.
Either you degrade people below you, or you don't work well with your peers, or you just cause problems to the culture. If you do things that could thrash the culture or could do wrong by the customer or a colleague, that's the fastest way to get oxygen taken out of the room for you.
That's so great.
It sticks out like a sore thumb, and
it does.
AJ's he's a legitimate Indiana farm boy. He's got incredible values. He was raised shucking corn and raising pigs. It's like he's just as nice as you could imagine, but he's very resolute and he's very, very, very meaningfully focused on not having a sense of entitlement within the culture, keeping that kind of grit, which is why, honestly, if you look at our profile, it's just a company full of a bunch of misfits. And you wouldn't expect a very, very atypical senior leadership team for a Silicon Valley company. And he loves when people have chips on their shoulders, and he bets on the up and comer. He gives you a shot that you probably never would have had the type of chance that I have here at Hover, and likely would have got fired at least 6 times in my tenure if I was somewhere else. But his belief is that it's kind of like, it's like organic chemistry. You don't have to get it perfect. You just got to know what you did wrong in the lab and learn from it as you go. And so now people
That's
aren't afraid
great.
they're not afraid to take risks, and kind of take more kind of intellectual challenge and speak up when they need to speak up. So communication is like the foundation of any successful business, partnership, friendship, relationship. And it's the thing we try the hardest to do is maintain the free flow of communication within the company.
You tell AJ whenever he writes his book on leadership to be sure to send me a copy because I want to read that.
And we know so many people at the company, and we see them year after year. And so that usually if people are still around, it's a good place to work, and B, they're doing a good job. So we see it in practice. We spent so much time today talking about the company and the product. We didn't really get into the hot topic of today, which is AI. Of course, you guys have been in AI since before anybody talked about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of one of the foundations of your product day one.
That's right.
And so what can you tell us in the few minutes that we have left about how AI is influencing Hover today?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's fused into the DNA of the business because it's always been there for us. The ability to have gone from a product that when I first came into the company would take anywhere between 1.5 to 2 days to return a result to a product that we can now deliver as fast as 24 minutes on a roof and, sub 60 minutes for a complete property that came from our investments in artificial intelligence. And as the machine gets smarter over time, it chipped away more and more of what we needed human beings to do. And we still have a reconstruction process for our property, 3D reconstructions that involves human QA in the loop at the different phases. But the investments that we've made in AI have been long-standing. We've had our automation team or our machine learning and artificial intelligence engineers that we've invested in since before I got to the business in 2016. And are still here today. And now we're able to take advantage of a lot of the really incredible open source technologies that are out there as the world is seeing some significant breakthroughs in artificial intelligence technology. And what used to be a process that allowed us to provide design, function, and capability to people with the exact replica 3D models of the property that require the 8 photos and, we deliver something to you, in tens of minutes or hours later. There now are capabilities that provide instant design on single photo upload of a property. And, and we're really uniquely positioned because we have tens of millions of properties now captured in the database, and to be able to segment those properties at scale gives us the ability to train the algorithms in ways that a lot of other people just can't with some of the open source technologies that are out there. So it's going to present a really unique opportunity for us as we go forward. And we're doubling down on it more than ever before.
Well, I would think, I see so many interesting use cases just from the little bit that I understand about it, not only under the hood, but to communicate with a direct-to-consumer in a direct-consumer environment, on a generative level. Right. It'll be very exciting to see where that's going.
Yeah, and that's really going to inform, I think, what we're starting to see now on the kind of more of the underwriting use cases and being able to provide policyholder benefits that are germane to the policyholder when they're at that phase of the insurance life cycle. Mm-hmm. Typically, you're buying the new home, you're getting your insurance policy. You want to be able to usually do stuff to your house at that time. So we're seeing a lot of carriers that see that additional value add that we bring in on top of the structured data that we provide that is insights that can inform ITV and Schedule A and the things that are more on the underwriting side of the house. But hey, there's this stuff that can help our policyholders with making informed decisions on home remodels, and that would be a really incredible. Like, you should know about this as well. So It helps with the customer experience for the carrier.
Cool. Well, we're excited for your future, and to see who else we can fool into being on the podcast next. We offer all kinds of interesting promises, none of which we deliver on, but it works. It worked on you today. That's awesome.
That's probably why we get along so well. Us too.
Well, usually what we end up doing at the end is forcing somebody into giving us swag.
That's true.
So just know that.
I will tell you, one of my favorites is my Hover pullover. I used this winter a lot. It was my fleece jacket. I loved it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, just send me an address. I'll get you a
fairly good collection of Hover. But we're wondering what's new. Like, I'm kind of looking at what you're wearing today and thinking to myself, that's what I really need. It looked good on the golf course.
Shameless.
But anyways, listen. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
A pleasure to talk with you and to hear all about the company and yourself. And we'll look forward to seeing you out there on the road somewhere.
Yeah, look forward to PLRB. Hopefully we can see you guys.
That's right.
For sure. We'll be there.
Thank you for having me.
Lee, I think I'll have Al dig up, or Alicia, what episode number that was for Hover. But
like the number that we've had?
Maybe the best.
Oh, ouch. No, I mean, wonderful for him, right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's 6. I'm pretty sure we've had 6 of them.
He was awesome. And I mean, clearly he's been there a really long time, and he knows the company and the product upside down and backward.
He was an amazing guest, and he told us that we had met him before, and I couldn't place it, and he placed the exact restaurant. We actually shared a table with him, and I now remember meeting him at a CoreLogic conference in January, and I remember I was impressed with him then. He brought it all back, but he was a very impressive guest, super knowledgeable, and I can't wait to see what he does into the space, into the consumer space, which is huge. I think there's so much that you could do there. I'm excited about that.
With our number one groupie, whose name I will not mention.
We were at dinner with.
I am not mentioning that person's name.
Okay.
Or their gender.
Then that's your prerogative, I guess.
That's right. We do have a groupie.
It was a nice dinner.
We do have one groupie, and for those loyal listeners, they'll know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we thank you all for being here. Thanks to Alicia and Al for everything they do. Thanks to Ali for even being here. And
without him, there's no podcast.
Another shout out, Aaron. Thanks to Aaron for your support.
Yes.
And we'll say what we say every single darn time.
Goodbye, everybody.